Hi, BookTube. We're going to do a tag today, and it's appropriate that you will hear in the background, randomly, noises of drilling and hammering, because we're going to do the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy tag. This tag was created by Gareth at Books, Songs and Other Magic. Thank you, Gareth, for tagging me. And I say that all the noises will be appropriate. Of course, now they've stopped. That's just... I got all prepared to prepare you for the noises, but I'm sure that they'll resume because there's some ongoing work just upstairs from us. But it fits in really well with prompt number 1, which is about the demolition of a house. If you remember the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it opens with Arthur Dent discovering machinery in his front garden that is about to demolish his house. In fact, the whole of Earth, I think, is going to be demolished. You can tell it's been a long time since I read the book. I mean, literally 30 plus years. But never mind. The question for the tag is what matters. And the question is, what book would I look for first if my home was going to be demolished? Which won't happen. These hammering noises are just, they're renovation. That's what they are. I guess I'd have to save my copy of Middlemarch. The question does make it sound, though, as if I could go back for more books, so that's very kind. I don't have to settle on just one. What the question doesn't say is, will I have somewhere else to go with all these books? Because if I don't want to take too many. So I don't know if I'd take any. There's a part of me that's thinking, I asked the person who watches television as well. I ran these questions past him, and he said no. If we had to suddenly leave our home, we'd just leave our physical books. We'd probably take our laptops and mobiles, and that would be great. I'd still have a huge ebook library on there, and I think we'd just start collecting books again, however, or we'd use the library for a while, but we'd make do somehow. So I don't know if we'd take any. Question 2 is about Vogon Poetry. I don't remember much about the Vogons. I don't even remember that they wrote poetry. But the question is asking me to quote a poet. There we go. There's some of the noises. Quote a poet, a line of poetry, or a lyric that you love. And won't it just be wonderful for me to read a poem with drilling noises in the background? Well, we'll try. You know that I don't give poetry the attention it deserves on this channel. And that's unfortunate. And I won't apologize for it. It's just the way it is at the moment. But I do have a favorite poem, and it's been my favorite poem for some decades now. It's very short, so I can read the whole of it online. It is William Carlos Williams' poem, The Red Wheelbarrow. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater, beside the white chickens. That's it. And every time I read it, I think, what is it about this poem? Why does it stay with me? Why do I remember it and go looking for it again and again? And I think it's because it's this truth that it's communicating, that there are small things that we may not consider worthy of notice, and yet they would become critical if suddenly they were no longer there. Critical in the sense that you'd want to replace them pretty quickly. And then question 3 is about the most important point made in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Of course, they're searching for the answer to the meaning of life, and they put all the factors into an enormous computer, which finally spits out an answer and says the answer is 42. The prompt for this question is, what is the point? What is the meaning of life? In other words, I'm supposed to take the place of the universal computer and answer this question. Now you'll probably be able to hear a lorry outside. I tell you what, it's all happening Tuesday at lunchtime. I thought this would be a lovely quiet time to film. But anyway, Gareth talked in his video about making a difference. And I remember hearing him say that when I first watched the tag video, and I was thinking, well, so much for me then. And I wasn't having a great week. If I'm being honest, and I think what was bothering me at that point was the feeling that in one particular area of my life, I no longer feel as though I'm making a difference. And maybe it'll help others if I admit to this, because life circumstances sometimes come along and they can strain you. Like they can pull you back from giving as much in the way that you would like to give. So if you lose a job, or you have a long-term medical condition, or you have to take a job that pays the bills, but it's not really the job that you would prefer if you felt you had a choice, or you have got to raise children by yourself, or you have to hold down more than one job in order to cover bills. All these are extremely draining. You suddenly find you have to become a carer for a parent or some other relative. All these things can just turn your life inside out and upside down, and they drain a lot of energy out of you. But you can get to the end of the day and think, wow, what difference do I make in the world? And you're a little bit like William Carlos Williams' The Red Wheelbarrow. You aren't much noticed, and you feel like you aren't much noticed, but you also know how much depends upon you, how much you carry. And so I don't know if I want to talk about the meaning of life. I think I just want to shout out to all those people who are like red wheelbarrows. They're like holding things together. They may not be noticeable in terms of making some grand difference to the world, but so much depends upon them in tiny ways. And those people, like, they deserve their own shout out, because they're never going to get it otherwise. And question 4 is about how The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy first became well known, and that was over the radio. And so the prompt question is, what is your favorite memory in your experience as a listener to the radio? Oh, well, I would say podcasts. When podcasts were invented, I thought died and gone to heaven. That was fantastic, because it meant I could listen to radio any time. And when you're a working person, you miss all the good radio. It's all on during the daytime, or maybe in the evening when you have to do other things and it just isn't convenient to listen. So podcasts were amazing. And I used to, before I messed around with YouTube, I did a podcast. I think for about 11, 12 months, I did my own podcast. It was called The Naked Soul, SNR, which stood for Spiritual, Not Religious, The Naked Soul. And it discussed my new status as a person without a religion, who nevertheless was extremely interested in spiritual matters. And I listened to loads of podcasts. I subscribed to I'd say about 35, 40 different podcasts. And I can remember one in particular, which I should look up again. It was made by a psychologist in San Diego, he's now a professor of psychology at, now let me look it up because I put it in my notes here, Sonoma State University, Dr. David Van Nuys, and he did a psychology podcast called Shrink Rap Radio, the rap being R-A-P, Shrink Rap Radio, where he talked about various aspects of psychology, self-help, all things related to lifestyle, but he inevitably edged on to things of a spiritual nature. And I can just remember the tagline for the program. It was all the psychology you need to know and just enough to make you dangerous. And David Van Nuys was fantastic on air. He did really good, like hour-long interviews with people who would have been his colleagues. And so he could draw out of them, well, first of all, he could come up with excellent questions and so draw out of them more than perhaps an interviewer who didn't have the same level of expertise could. And also the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, up until 2023, had a magnificent, it should have been award-winning podcast called Tapestry. And it dealt in the broadest possible sense with human spirituality, which covered religion. It covered all religions, all areas. The host, Mary Hines, was a Catholic herself, but her interest went much, much broader, and she had an astounding interviewing technique. And the guests that she brought on, they ranged all over different viewpoints, and I really can't describe it. So what I'm going to do is include links in my description box, both to Shrink Rap Radio and to the archive. There isn't a lot there, but even what they do have on the CBC website that you can still listen to from Tapestry is fantastic. It was an amazing program. It's so sad that it had to end, but in a way, Mary Hines she drove it. I don't know if another person could just step into her shoes necessarily. Question five. Question five is about the towel. The towel that Arthur Dent brings with him, and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy goes on to, there's a little digression about just how useful a towel will be if you find yourself hitchhiking through the galaxy at any time. But the question, the prompt for this tag is, what book or books would you pack for a holiday? And actually, I didn't realize this. While I was doing the research for this tag and getting some answers, I found out that May the 25th is Hitchhiker's, it's Towel Day. And Hitchhiker's fans are supposed to carry a towel around with them in public. Have you ever seen I have never seen anybody do that. I have never seen a person carrying a towel where it wasn't immediately obvious to me why they were carrying a towel. So I don't know. If anybody knows about that and has seen it happen, I'd just be interested to know. Leave a comment, please. But back to the question. The question was books I take on holiday. I don't. I really don't. Once I discovered ebooks and became comfortable with them in the early 2000s, holidays, immediately I thought, why on earth would I pack something that I have to carry when I'm the one who usually has to carry the luggage in this household, and that's because I am 10 years younger. At 62, I am 10 years younger than the person who watches television. So I still have the stronger back and shoulders and knees and all that. And so I carry the luggage. And because of that, I decide how weighty that luggage is going to be. So physical books, no, I don't take them. And I also don't take them because inevitably when we were on holiday, there is at least one book shopping day. Because we always make, as part of our holiday itinerary, a day to go visit some independent bookshop or some large bookshop. It doesn't really matter. We just always like to have a day when we shop for books. So I need to make space in that suitcase and anticipate the weight of that suitcase with books that I'm going to buy. So I always plan to read ebooks when I'm on holiday. Question 6 is about the Infinite Improbability Drive. I cannot remember what on earth that was, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to have to read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy now. Just reread it, reacquaint myself with all these circumstances. The prompt question is what matters. And the prompt question is, name a fast read. Well, I'm going to name one that I bet no one on BookTube has ever spoken about. And that's a big gamble because YouTube's been around a while. BookTube, rather, has been around a while. I'm going to name a 1924 novel by E. Phillips Oppenheim called The Terrible Hobby of Sir Joseph Lond, Baronet. Yeah, I just finished reading that. It took me, well, if I'd have had a day to read it, I would have finished it in a day easily, even though it was 270 pages long. Because there's something about writing styles. I should do a Sideline video about this. What is it about writing that makes it pacey or takes pace away? But one of the things that E. Philip Oppenheimer was very good at was he would simply move directly into dialogue or action, and he wouldn't have any transition writing, getting the person from their house to the taxi to the building the taxi takes them to. He would cut out all that. If he had a character on the phone going, "Hi, can I meet you at X cafe?" the very next paragraph would be sitting down in the cafe and starting the dialogue with the character that the other character intended to meet as a result of the phone call. That's how quick things moved from scene to scene to scene. And it was fantastic. There was very little sort of characters thinking to themselves or wondering about things. There were little tiny scrappy bits, but very little slowed that novel down. And oh my goodness, it was a fantastic little mystery read, definitely of its time. You have to allow that it was 1924, so not a lot of technology. And also, I think, written for a popular audience that hadn't yet become sophisticated enough to expect a little more from their mystery investigators. But nevertheless, a good, fun little read. Recommend that. And question 7 is the don't panic question. And it asks, name a book with great levels of tension or suspense. Well, I'm going to agree with Gareth 100%. S.A. Cosby's Razorblade Tears. If you want a book that just, it's like chaining yourself to the back of a pickup truck and asking the driver to accelerate from 0 to 60 as fast as he possibly can and keep going. Because just literally, the book just goes and you never know what's going to happen next. You are literally dragged into situations you would never choose to go into yourself, but that's the point. The characters would. The characters are very different. They're not afraid of danger. They've seen a lot of it. It's a fantastic, fast, tense, suspenseful read. I'd also recommend Holly Jackson's Five Alive, or anything Holly Jackson has written, because she's very good at a constructed building of suspense, careful building of suspense, and not info dumping, if that bothers you. She really does. Whoa, there's a good background noise. I'm going to have to speak up. She gives you the tension points and feeds you information in such a way that keeps the story moving forward. You never feel like you've paused while you get into everybody's head for too long a time. It's a fantastic setup. So I'd also recommend Holly Jackson for high tension and high suspense. And the last question, as that drill gets closer and closer, I'm beginning to wonder, is it just renovations? Maybe I should check. Never mind. Last question, TV and film adaptations. And it's asking me, pick a book to discuss, one or more TV or film adaptations that you know of a book. See, this is a wrong question for me. This is where I wish my friend Georgie was on camera with me right here, because I'd say to her, okay, Georgie, if I name a book, could you talk about the film and TV adaptations and your opinion of the same? It's just not me. I just don't watch enough television or film to have that background knowledge. Yeah, I mean, we did it, she and I. I don't know if you remember. I think this is back in May 2024. We did it with the Dune films when they came out, the films 1 and 2, which equate to just the first book. And there we had a fantastic back and forth, because she knew the previous adaptations better than I did, and I could talk about my knowledge of the book compared with the films that we'd just seen, the one starring Timothée Chalamet. And so, yeah, this is not my kind of tag question. I've got to leave this for other people, just that one question. And finally, oh, it's gone quiet. Well, I get to tag people. Meg, you've talked about wanting to do this, so you are tagged. It's official. Meg at Books Off the Beaten Path. Also, my usual culprits, Joseph Francis Burton and Marion H. I don't know if you know The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you don't, then just go, just ignore the first part of the question, which is a reference to the books and the television adaptation. Just ignore that. Read the last bit of the question and answer that, because they're all quite good bookish questions. I don't think, oh, well, I suppose the meaning of life. All right, Joe, if you don't want to answer the meaning, actually, I'd be interested to know how you would answer that myself. But there we go. Choose to do it if you'd like to, and also tag some other people down below to get a good list going, because I'd like to see this tag travel as much as possible. Okay, everybody, I'm still not sure that my house here will be left standing with all this noise going on, but if it is, I'll be back in a few days' time with a book review, okay? Good luck with your reading as we reach the end of October, the beginning of November. Good luck to all those who are going to take on a Read What You Own challenge. I'm not going to join you. I did think about it, but I thought, no, I'm doing fine for reading books that I own. Right now, my statistics are standing at 68% books that I own being read. So that's pretty good. More than half the books I read, I already own. So I'm going to leave it like that. I think that's a good pace. But for the rest of you, have at it. Good luck. See you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.